Hello everyone and welcome back to my favourite room in the house. Before I start today, I just have to warn you, it's my day off and I'm home alone with Dusty the dog. So if you hear him rummaging around in the room beside me, or he runs off down the hallway barking because somebody pressed the doorbell, I do apologise. I'm no Steven Spielberg kind of operator, so in my videos you get my life, warts and all. And let's be honest, little dogs are going to be little dogs, aren't they? I'd also like to take a moment to thank everybody who has checked out my videos of late, to everyone who has left a like, left a comment or subscribed to my channel. I really do appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to do so now. It certainly keeps me motivated. It helps the channel reach a larger audience, which might include people like you who enjoy looking at vintage G.I. Joes. But not only that, it keeps me motivated to keep bringing them out. So if you like what you see, please leave a like and I'll keep making videos. Today I wanted to talk to you about a subset within the 1982 to 1994 run of G.I. Joe. And they are the Armour Tech G.I. Joe figures from the Star Brigade subset, which was released in 1993. 1993 was sort of the twilight of the ARAH run, and these figures are much maligned, but I love them because I love all G.I. Joes, but also because I sort of grew up in the 90s, so they're the G.I. Joes that I know. Now, Star Brigade was backed by a 3-issue run of the comics, which started with 146 and ran through to issues 147 and 148. I've got them out so you can have a look at them here. So as you can see, in these comics, G.I. Joe has clearly moved to space. They've become the Star Brigade, and they're taking on the forces of Cobra among the stars and the planets. It's mayhem on the moon as the Joes ride the Oblivion Express. But not only did they take on Cobra, they took on another evil enemy called the Lunatics, or the Legion of the Unliving, as the story was told in the comics. But that's enough of the comics. Feel free to check them out if you own some copies, or you can read them online for free these days. The world and the internet is a wonderful place. But without any further ado, let's get to the reason why we are here, and that is to look at the figures. And the first figure I wanted to show you is the version 1 1993 Cobra Bat. There he is there. He's called version 1 Bat because Bat in this case is spelt with 2 A's, believe it or not, B-A-A-T, which is different to the original Bat that we received in the 80s, which is spelt just B-A-T. There he is there. So this Bat is a battle android trooper, whereas this Bat is a battle armored android trooper, or the other way around. I can't remember. Please tell me in the comments below if I've got those 2 words the wrong way around. As you can see, these figures, they're very, very different to the original ARAH figures. They don't have an O-ring, they have far less articulation, and they don't have the back screw that we all became accustomed to. So it could be argued that these aren't really G.I. Joes. What do you think? Maybe leave a comment below. The Bat is probably the hardest of these Armour Tech figures to get a hold of, and he was the last one that I added to my collection. I'm pretty happy to have him. And he's pretty well sought after. I'll chuck him over there and we'll have a look at the next one. The next Armour Tech figure is 1993 version 4 Destro. There he is there. This is probably the best figure from the Armour Tech subset. I think so anyway. And he looks very similar in a lot of ways to the Destro figures we had become accustomed to. Of course, Destro in all his versions takes on that red, black and chrome colour scheme. And if you remove this helmet, which is often missing on this Armour Tech figure, you'll see that the head closely resembles the 1992 version of Destro. Now, this Destro, he's only got one arm. His other arm is a missile launcher, which is spring-loaded, and a lot of the missile launchers supplied with GI Joes in the 90s were spring-loaded. But for some reason, Destro here, good old James McCullen, he was supplied with a missile launcher instead of an arm, which is very, very interesting. So I'll put Destro over here with my bat, and I'll get the next figure out. Now, it wouldn't be any wave of G.I. Joe without a version of Duke, and Armour Tech certainly made room for Duke in their subset. So in 1993, they brought out version 5 of Duke, who looks nothing like any of the versions of Duke that we received until this point. If we remove his helmet, which is also often lost on this Armour Tech figure, you can see his face sculpt is very similar to the original Duke of 1983. There he is, very smiley, happy Duke. A lot of the parts for the Armour Tech Duke were taken from other Armour Tech figures, as we're about to see. The torso came from General Hawk, the legs came from Robo Joe and General Hawk, and the arms were also from Armour Tech Heavy Duty, which I'll show you a little bit later. But that's version 5 of Duke, released in 1993. I'll put him over there, with his helmet on, of course. Now, just a moment ago, I mentioned Heavy Duty, and I want to show you the version 2 of Heavy Duty, which was released in the Armour Tech subset in 1993. Here he is here. And what makes this figure awesome is, of course, that horned helmet. It is just wild. Heavy Duty, if you remove the helmet, he looks very similar to the Heavy Duty that we all know and love from the earlier figure released in 1991. There he is there, if I can squeeze him in. All the elements of Heavy Duty are there. He looks like a real boss of a figure. And shout out to G.I. Jetman, who was a massive Heavy Duty fan. Now, version 2 Heavy Duty, he shares some bits and pieces with some of these Armour Tech figures, but his torso is completely unique. So no other Armour Tech figure has that torso. So that's version 2 of Heavy Duty from 1993. I'll put him over there with his helmet. There we go. Done. The next Armour Tech figure I want to show you is this guy. This is Robo Joe, and Robo Joe was a completely unique figure to G.I. Joe when he was released with Star Brigade in 1993. Robo Joe's real name is Greg Scott, and the file card is just a fantastic read. Basically, his story is that Greg Scott was a scientist working in a laboratory when Destro attacked, and poor old Greg was horribly wounded. And Greg's friends, the other scientists in his laboratory, decided that they'd put him back together with cybernetic features, so he's effectively half human and half robot, hence the code name Robo Joe. Put his helmet back on here. Now, Robo Joe shares a lot of features as the other Armour Tech figures. His legs and arms are from General Hawk and or Duke and Rock and Roll. But having said that, his torso and his face sculpt, that iconic face sculpt there, are completely unique. So that's 1993 version 1, Robo Joe. The next Armour Tech figure I have here is 1993 Rock and Roll. Now, this was the 4th version of Rock and Roll from the 1982 to 1994 run of G.I. Joe, and he was made up of lots of bits and pieces from these other Armour Tech figures. So he has Heavy Duty's legs. I'm about to show you Hawk. He's got Hawk and Robo Joe's arms. His head and torso are very much unique. And speaking of that head, I'll remove the helmet, which again is quite easily lost, and I'm happy to own. I might just take that off camera to do this. If you have a look at his face sculpt, it's easy to tell that's the rock and roll that we all know and love. That clear blonde hairstyle with a blonde full face beard is the rock and roll that we all know and love. And there's my original rock and roll figure from 1983, just for comparison. So that's Armour Tech rock and roll. He's pretty cool. Put him back over there, and we'll take rock and roll with me. Now, I've mentioned General Hawk in this video a few times already, and the time has come now to put him in front of you. So here he is, 1993 version 4 General Hawk. Now, this figure was packaged in with a vehicle or a playset. He was supplied with the G.I. Joe Armour Bot, which was a really big robot that was sort of battery operated and used to squirt water and all sorts of things. The figure itself was made up of parts taken from the other Armour Tech figures. So the legs came from Duke and Robo Joe, the arms came from Rock and Roll and Robo Joe, and the torso is the same as Duke. But the head looks very familiar, and I'll remove that helmet so you can see. That head was taken from the 1991 version of General Hawk, who was popularized by the Deke cartoons. I'll put his helmet straight back on. So it wasn't a head sculpt that we hadn't seen before. They did supply this General Hawk with a strange looking pink bazooka, which is one of those reasons why a lot of collectors don't really like 90s figures, because there is some neon involved and it just looks out of place. And it's easy to say that the pink looks out of place with General Hawk here. But hey, I love him because, as I said before, I love all G.I. Joes. So that is 1993 General Hawk. So there you have it. There are all 7 figures from the Armour Tech subset of G.I. Joe from 1993. And before I hand over to you guys in the comments to vote and tell me whether you think these guys are G.I. Joes or not, I just want you to take one thing into account. In 1984, G.I. Joe released a figure without an O-ring, without any articulation, and it went on to become an iconic character in G.I. Joe folklore. And purely on that basis, I think these Armour Tech guys, they have a place in G.I. Joe. What do you think? Please tell me in the comments. As I said before, you might also like to leave a like or subscribe to my channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Yo Joe.